You've sent me your physiques, you've sent me your photos, and you've asked me to be honest. So that's exactly what you're gonna get. I'm gonna give you exactly what an IFBB Pro sees judging your physiques. And it's not a judging comparison from person to person. This is rating you against yourself and your potential from what I would look at if I was a bodybuilding judge or someone who is looking to maximize your physique. And if you haven't submitted your physique, stick around because you're probably gonna learn a thing or two from guys with similar structures and similar body types to yourself. So I'm gonna judge this as if I was a bodybuilding judge. You're up on stage, I'm gonna be looking at your size, your symmetry, your condition, your balance. And it's not to be comparing yourself against each other, it's about comparing yourself to what you can be to be your best. And since requesting you to send me through your photos, my DMs have been packed with photos and videos of the physiques coming through. So if your physique's not reviewed, stay tuned, we might do a part 2. And if you haven't sent them through, send them through to me now and we'll probably do a second part. All right, so submission number 1 is Deacon. I actually know Deacon from the gym and he looks absolutely mad. So Deacon's just done his first show. He's competed in natural category. And I can definitely confidently say he is far more shredded than I ever was in my first ever show, without a doubt. He's done it naturally. I think he won his category as well. The physique and structure on this guy, absolutely mad. If he's gonna jump into a classic physique lineup, which he has, he's gonna do very well in the future because he's got that structure. If you look at classic physique, they're normally looking for balance, symmetry, and V-taper. V-taper is always built from having your waist either being small or creating the illusion with development that your waist is small, and then having broadness and depth up top. And as you can see, wide flaring lats, small waist, full arms. Condition here was mad, and yeah, the front lat spread. He's got some good fullness and condition here. If we're going to critique the physique though, condition absolutely awesome. I don't think he needs to be any leaner. When you build more muscle though, and you have more muscle maturity, you can normally get that like extra dry skin texture and almost more freaky look to condition. And not to say that his body fat needs to be lower. With more muscle maturity there, you always just look that bit leaner at similar body fat. Overall shape, genetic symmetry, absolutely awesome. Things to be improved on, probably a little bit more leg density. I'd probably go for a little bit more like outer quad sweep and hamstring size overall, which is just going to come with time. I also find for myself, especially when I started really prioritizing my adductors, so adductor, inner thigh focus training, my legs just appeared so much bigger. So although it's your inner thigh you're growing, it just makes the whole quad from the front look a whole lot more dense. So to build some more fullness there, I definitely recommend an adductive biased training block in the next growth phase. But overall development, especially for a first show, is mad. I'm a big fan of the structure and shape that young Deacon has here. I think with some more time growing and some more shows under his belt, this is going to be pretty dangerous. So props to Deacon and Coach Dan, who I know have worked hard for this physique. Next up, we've got Luke. Luke is actually an old client of mine. Luke, rest assured, you've grown a lot since I spoke to you last. Big Luke here is looking very, very round. Luke was one of those guys who started with like a bit of a fat loss journey, getting shredded, started with a bit of body fat to lose, got lean, and now he's been building some size. But I can see from the front, delts and chest are the strong points of the physique. To build more of that V-taper shape, which just makes the physique look more impressive, I would focus a little bit more on some more lat density, which makes your back look wider even from the front, makes your waist look even smaller. Luke's another one who's got really solid outer quad sweep development. So a little bit more adductor work I think will go a long way. I would focus more so on posterior focus training here. So back, hamstrings, glutes, and adductors included in that. Next, we got Angelo. Angelo is a mate of mine and he sent me through a few photos. Some of these ones here are from his last bodybuilding comp about a year or so ago. And then the most recent ones are now. And the most recent ones, if we come into his front relaxed pose, this is some quality depth. There's some guys who have awesome structure genetically. There's some guys who have awesome development genetically, but when you pair those together, great structure and great development in the areas that matter, like Angelo has, you get a pretty awesome look. Like this is looking freaky. I believe with Angelo, the legs are a strong point. Legs are looking dense as. I'd probably prioritize more training frequency and volume into the upper body just to bring that up. Again, the upper body's grown a lot. Lat width, great. Chest fullness, great. It's more just going to be arms. If you look at the front double bicep pose, so more fullness in the arms is going to have this physique looking nuts because the lat width, the clavicle width, and the quad density, absolutely awesome. Bigger arms is going to be absolutely nasty. Push your training frequency of the arms pretty high. There was points in the past where I would train arms 3 days a week when I was younger. Don't need to anymore because they're a strong point. Definitely found that work because you can attack them multiple days of the week. They're going to recover pretty fast and it's not going to take away from your body recovering and performing for the bigger lifts and bigger muscle groups throughout the week. So arm focused work, I hit the arms 2 to 3 days a week, make sure they're progressing like any other muscle group, and that paired with this current fullness through the back, the quads, and just the genetic shape will be absolutely freaky. Next, we got Big Dane, and I'm looking at these ones. Dane is a big human right here. We've got some photos here. He's asked me to be harsh. It's kind of hard to be harsh when he's looking this jacked though. Side chest pose, that's some solid fullness there. I don't know how recent these photos are, but I'm assuming Dane's probably in prep at the moment or doing some sort of cutting phase. Glute striation starting to come through. I know that the season C shows are coming up about 6 weeks away. This looks about on par with that. And Dane, you're looking like you're going to be pretty nasty on stage. Condition looks solid, but if we're looking at overall development of the physique, this is another one where I think limb density, especially the arms, are a strong point. Filling this physique out with some more density through the back and the chest is just going to have everything looking more 3D and complete. When your arms are a strong point, it takes a lot more mental effort to actually stimulate your back with your pulling movements to build your back. Like when your arms are so strong, when you're doing rowing movements, pull down movements, it's very easy for your biceps being stronger to take over. They're receiving most of the stimulus and the back is not getting quite as much. And not to say his back is weak, but I definitely think if we're looking at trying to build more balance to match the actual amount of density he's got in his arms, a bit of extra back training will definitely go a long way. The abs and thigh pose with the vacuum looks very classic. But yeah, Dane's looking good. Definitely an arm dominant physique. Some more focused isolated training towards the back and chest will go a long way. Definitely a large human though. So this is me being very picky though, because to be honest, Dane is looking pretty jacked. All right, next we got Matt. Matt is definitely looking like he's ready to jump on the men's physique stage with a solid prep under his belt. Overall balance, if we're looking at men's physique judging criteria favors looking aesthetic, looking broad, having some deep, dense abs, and just being obviously shredded. The width of the delt's absolutely awesome. The small waist and the flaring lats to sort of pair that illusion goes absolutely awesome. Delts being a target, the way I look at it for men's physique is if you've got really developed delts and really developed lats, it's going to favor you a lot. And Matt has this. So I think just coming down, having a really good shred phase is going to set him up really nicely to reveal the detail, the size he's holding. The back probably could do with a bit more density. Width is there. We can always do with more width, but I would probably put a bit of extra focus on just building the back through some rowing and pulling movements so that density and 3D back appeal is there when you turn to the rear, but the actual shape from the front, absolutely mad. Next, we got Andreas, who here is letting me know that he's 10 weeks into a lean bulk and he's done it right. I say this to all my clients, like my goal is when we're doing a bulk phase or a growth phase to always keep it lean. When you're growing and you're staying lean, you can see the muscle you're building, you can see the detail you're building, you feel 10 times better in your own skin, and who doesn't want to be lean year round? It's not hard to do if you do have a proper protocol and procedure in place. Andreas, I think, has been nailing this. 10 weeks into a growth phase here, he's looking like he's holding roughly maybe around 12% body fat, which I think is very sustainable. If you try and stay too lean when you're growing, your body's not going to recover or perform at its best. You need to have like yourself in a well-fueled state, but there's no need to go past a certain point. And I think Andreas has sort of found a really good balance here. If we're talking about development, he's definitely got a good baseline of actual development there as well, but I would just continue probably pushing this growth phase. Growth phase is no maximum as to how long you can push it for. I'd probably push it to around 20 weeks. Overall looking good here. If we're going to be critical, I would say the legs are probably an area that probably can do with a bit more work. I'm assuming he's pretty tall. Guys with longer limbs, it takes longer to fill out the frame and fill out those long limbs, but some extra leg work and hamstring work more specifically, I think it'd go a long way. All right, next we got Cal. Cal is an old client of mine and another guy who has just some pretty freaky proportions. Big Cal came to me a few years ago. He'd pushed a big dirty bulk, but as soon as he stripped back some body fat, we actually saw that he had a really good structure underneath. Cal's one of those guys. He's only a young individual. If you look at his front double bicep, he's got some good density there with some good shape as well. Chest fullness, absolutely awesome. The back is definitely a strong point. The density and width of his back is awesome. And again, another guy with pre-wide clavicles. If you can pair really thick and wide back and lats with wide clavicles, your just width just looks absolutely awesome. He has definitely grown since I've last seen him. If we're going to look at areas to improve upon, more so probably hamstrings again. It's pretty common, I think, for a lot of guys here, their hamstrings are probably a lagging point. And again, for me, that was an area that was lagging in my younger years. When I was younger, I just wanted to build all the party muscles, the chest, the arms, the quads. And sometimes things like your back and your hamstrings can become neglected. It's pretty common for guys to be hitting the hamstrings just tacked on to the back of a leg day. They don't get as much direct focus. They don't get as much stimulus. Not to say his hammies are weak, but I think some more hammies here on top of the density he's got up top will be absolutely awesome. I'm assuming he's into a bit of a growth phase now because he's looking very full. Next, we got Lewis. Lewis has sent me some photos, some gym selfies in the mirror. He said here that he's 16 years old. I don't know if he's taking the piss, but if he's actually 16, this is very, very impressive. 16-year-old me would have absolutely killed to be looking like this. Good amount of density, ab detail there, fullness with the biceps and the side chest. This is an absolutely jacked individual. I would just continue moving with momentum because you're doing something right. I don't know what the legs are looking like, but if the legs density matches the upper body, it's just a matter of continuing to build. Next, we got Jake. Jake here has got the proper check-in photo setup. Black backdrop, this is mad. I'm assuming he is getting ready at some point to compete, and he looks very well suited for the classic physique category. Front lat spread looking very good. He's hitting the vacuum pose as well, and I think if you're jumping on stage in the classic physique category, if you're not hitting a vacuum, you're leaving a lot on the table because it just makes that waistline look smaller. And if we want to sort of maximize the symmetry and the V taper of the physique for the classic division, he vacuum's your best bet. He's got a deep vacuum there. Everything's looking pretty solid. Definitely a lower body dominant physique, which respect, because I find it takes a lot more effort to grow the legs, but the actual quads on the man are absolutely mad. The only thing really here is to ensure that those quads don't get too out of control to the point where it makes the upper body look small. Very easy for guys with huge legs for the upper to look small. And it's not to say the upper is small, but in comparison, the legs just take everyone's attention away. If the legs are so big, we just need to match that with upper body density. To bring this physique to life some more, a bit of extra emphasis on the side delt to add a little bit more of width and 3D effect to the delts will go a long way in matching the width of the legs. There's always room for arms to be a bit bigger too. Not to say that the arms are a weak point, but I think some bigger buys, tries will pair the freaky effect of the dense legs. But this is impressive. Next, we got Lockie. Lockie is 20 years old, 93 kilos, and he has the goal of competing one day. Not bad at all for 20 years old. I'd probably say, like, if I compare myself to where Lockie is at 20 years old, not far off, I think, development wise. I think when I was 20, I was in that dirty bulking phase where I was just eating as much calories as I possibly could because I was just so eager to grow. And I probably looked a lot softer than Lockie did here. I mentioned it before, when you have more muscle density, more muscle maturity, you normally can function better at a lower body fat and walk around lean year round while still growing and making progress. But I think Lockie manages pretty well, having a good bit of balance in being able to grow while still having some visible abs there. I don't know exactly where he's up to, but Lockie at the moment is looking pretty aesthetic. This with a nice deficit phase would be pretty solid, I would assume. I think that we can afford to have body fat a little bit lower than what Lockie's at currently. And again, he doesn't have a lot of body fat to lose, but if we want to sort of be picky, we can afford to have body fat a little bit lower while still growing, therefore looking leaner, seeing the detail of what your body's building as you grow, and then just continue to build with more of an eye to seeing what muscle groups are coming along and what needs more focus. Back shots are looking dense, lat spread looking broad, looking this big at 20 years old. It's just a matter of continuing to run with momentum and ensure that training volume stays balanced across the board so we can keep on building with good symmetry, because I think the physique's looking pretty balanced. I'd probably run a short little deficit out of preference because I always like to keep a bit leaner and then rebound into a good growth phase from there to continue developing. This will be the last one I'll do for the day. Big Ben is actually a client of mine, and he's gone and torn his bicep, so he's actually been out of action for a little while. So he's asked me to review some of his photos before the injury, which things are looking pretty solid. I find it really fun for guys who have injuries and they take some time off the gym. It's normally really fun because when they get back into the gym, their body just rebounds so well. Like, muscle memory is a beautiful thing. When you build the muscle, it's so much faster to regain that muscle than it was to build it in the first place. And then it's just a matter of moving with that momentum to continue building upon that. So this is going to be fun once Ben's back. I know he's back in the gym mildly now, and we're about to get cracking back into his next phase, taking things more seriously once he's got some more time to recover under his belt. But let's have a look at the physique here, because Ben's one of those guys who has a pretty freaky look. I think a lot of people, I hear it often, they say, oh yeah, this guy's genetically got big arms or he's genetically got big legs, whatever the case may be. I don't think it's a genetic thing. You got to do the work to build a muscle group, no matter what your genetics are like. I think it more so comes down to how well you naturally can stimulate the muscle and connect with that muscle when training it. I know a lot of guys, they'll train arms, they just don't really feel it too well. The connection, the mind-muscle connection between the biceps and triceps isn't quite as good as some others. And that normally would just lead to their execution of reps maybe not being quite as solid, whereas a lot of guys just naturally are really able to flex their bicep and get a really good contraction, meaning that when they do train their biceps, those movements are done maximally. I've always found a pretty good connection with my biceps and triceps, whereas when I'm doing the movement, I can really engage the muscle maximally, focus on a really good squeeze and keeping the tension there, which I think in turn has led to me being able to build my arms to being a stronger point. And I'm assuming that's probably where Ben has come from as well, because ever since Ben started with me a few years ago, we haven't really done a whole lot of arm training. I mean, his arms have blown up, even though they already were relatively developed when he came to me. When you've got some dense arms, it just makes the frontal bicep shot just look just in your face. I definitely do believe though, with a bit more lat width, it's just going to bring this physique to life. Ben's actually relatively similar to me, where he's got a small waist, relatively narrow torso, but wide shoulders and big arms. If that's the case, if you've got a longer, more narrow torso, the physique can look a little bit longer and not as compact, especially when the big arms are there. It's almost like big arms on a small torso. We have worked a lot on building his lats up. If we look at his back shot, the actual back density and fullness is great, but a bit more lat width is going to go a long way. He's also another guy with some pretty jacked delts. Just a bit more lower lat flare, lower lat development is going to make this physique look even better. He's got some pretty awesome quads and outer quad sweep as well, which has been obviously focusing on some more since the bicep's been torn. Ben is one of those guys who's got all the good party muscles. I think just building some more balance through the width of the lats, the density of the hamstrings, and the fullness of the chest will go a long way, because the arms are obviously in a good spot. You'll probably notice that with a lot of these guys I mentioned today, is when we have stronger muscle groups, it's really important to not just forget about those muscle groups and let your training become complacent, but to let them sort of grow at a slower pace and put more of your training volume and frequency onto the areas that may be weaker. Because if you have one strong muscle group, in comparison, it can often make the smaller muscle groups look even weaker than they are. Balance and symmetry is key. When I do these videos, sometimes I feel bad because I don't want to pick apart people's physiques, but at the end of the day, I'm sort of desensitized to it. That's what I do every single day. And I think the guys that make the best progress are the ones who are open to criticism, open to take negative feedback on board, because where there's areas that may come across as negative feedback, that is what's going to lead you to being more intentional with developing your physique. It's going to lead you to improving. If you keep doing the same thing, a lot of the time, any imbalances or weak points you're going to have are never going to improve. You're just going to sort of keep going in the direction you're in, with potentially leaving gains on the table in certain muscle groups. So takeaway from these videos is symmetry is key. Whether you want to jump on stage, judges are always going to favor the guys with more symmetry, or if you just want to look good and jacked for the fun of it, the more symmetry you have, the more eye-catching you're going to be. Generally, the more happy you're going to be with your physique. And at the end of the day, if you feel good about how you look, that's the most important thing. And that's the real fun thing about building a physique. It's almost like just crafting like a statue or a sculpture. You can slap on muscle to whatever areas you want, as long as your training is specific around those areas. We can pretty much just design your physique. And that's the fun thing about what I do for my clients. I want to give you feedback as to where you can improve upon. If you let me know what your muscle groups you want to build and exactly how you want to look, as long as we're doing the right thing with some more direct advanced protocols, we can build your physique to look exactly the way you want. Following the right plan, putting in effort over time, you're going to be able to achieve it. Enjoy the process. Getting jacked is fun. Until next time, though, leave in the comments what videos you want to see, what else you'd like to learn, and I'm here to share all the knowledge I know on how to get big.